Welcome to Josh's House of Nerd podcast.
Greetings, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. Josh's House of Nerd podcast is brought to you by Silver Shamrock Masks. Halloween is on the way, and if you have not purchased your Halloween masks, then Silver Shamrock Masks is the place to be. Silver Shamrock Masks. Masks so amazing, it'll be a face-melting experience for the whole family. Happy, happy Halloween from Silver Shamrock. Not a sponsor. All right. And if you don't know that reference...
I wish it was a sponsor.
I know, it'd be cool.
Our Halloween month go really well.
Watch Halloween 3, and there's that song, Happy, Happy Halloween. It'll be embedded into your brain forever.
That doesn't sound like a pleasant experience.
It's part of the horror movie.
It is. That's how the masks melt your face as they sing that song. All right. Today on the podcast, we have John, Crit, and I, and we're going to be discussing a movie that Crit and I picked from John's three choices. Got you there. I paused, I know.
That was killer.
And the movie that we picked from John's horror picks was a Korean film called The Wailing. Now, I know this might be a change. We did pick The Priests before. But one problem we ran into when we were looking at The Priests, which I really wanted to watch, was that we couldn't find it anywhere right now.
Yeah, they took it off of every major streaming. It used to be on Prime, it used to be on Google Play, everything, and they took it off of all of them. I could not find a legitimate copy.
Neither could I. I mean, I was even, if you wanted to even pirate it, it was not there. I mean, it's really completely really hard to find. So because of that, we picked The Wailing. We wanted to, I made the choice to stick with the Korean genre because I think Korean genre horror movies are amazing and they don't have, they're not as visible to the horror community as they should be, in my opinion. So anyways, let's get talking about this movie. What did you guys think? Hello?
Dead air. We're still here. It's my movie pick, so I was going to open the floor to you guys first because I have thoughts and feelings.
I had to sneeze, so I had to come on my camera.
It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, well shot, well acted. I didn't find it scary. I didn't really there wasn't a over the top horror aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of found it kind of quirky, especially the first half.
Yeah, especially that first half. I agree with you. It's not meant to be this absolute horror, drive you over the top with being scared. Especially, and you get that feeling in that first 45 minutes, 45 to 55 minutes where it has that quirky feel.
He was making me laugh a little bit more than being scared about anything. Just some of the things he was saying to his family, some of the him. He kind of came off as being kind of a wuss bag. I mean,
goofball,
he's absolutely
definitely not competent.
No, not at all.
Well, and he's always making, if you catch on, he's always made excuses for why he's late or why he's not going to make it. Mother-in-law was sick. And then as soon as, his daughter's actually sick, everyone's like, oh, you're blaming your daughter. You're blaming your mother. So it's paints this picture of this cop who's barely keeping his job.
And it almost looks like he's barely keeping his family too. I mean, in the sense, or is he? That's you kind of saw that inside of their family a little bit. The family dynamic felt very strained, also.
Well, and I love this about this film, The Wailing, and just general foreign films that are shot well. The slice of life you get in this film, I think, is so well done. I think you can get a very good feeling of what life is like in that little village with how well they shot some of these scenes, just like the breakfast scene or the initial breakfast scene, where they're just shooting the bowl at the police office, the hospital and a little bit later scenes. I think they do such a great job in this film of showing you the slice of his life, that you get a really good sense of who he is and kind of his day to day.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like how they introduced that. I think they kind of, I like how they did spend some time of kind of getting to know who this guy was, who the family was, the family dynamics. I mean, they didn't go super deep, but you could get an overall feel of who this guy was, who his family was, the kind of relationships, and, you know, sometimes possibly the issues and problems that, you know, come out of that.
Well, and just some interesting bits that are quirky, and you wonder why they were the way they are. For example, when they're going at it in the car instead of the house, like you don't necessarily understand why he's going at it with his wife inside of a car, and it's not the compound, not their home.
Yeah, that was a little weird. That was definitely strange.
And then buying off his daughter because like, how much did you see? Well, I'm gonna go buy you all this candy, and we're not gonna talk about it ever again.
I got to be honest, it almost made me feel like the way he was buying her off. Like I'm pretty sure that was his wife, and why is he buying her off? It's not like he was with a prostitute or or with like a girlfriend or something.
And they never explain it fully. You get the impression that maybe she's like a stepmom.
It might be a cultural thing. You have to be careful about projecting, you know, kind of our cultural norms onto Korean cultural norms. I'm not saying that it one way or the other. I don't know, but they may be the film may be representing an atypical family, but it also might be representing kind of a typical village family in their setup.
And I love this film for that because they're unapologetically Korean. It's, you know, we're not trying to be a Western film.
I'm pretty sure they made it for a Korean audience, so that would be really weird if they made an American-centric, Western-centric film. Yeah.
You say Western-centric, and all of a sudden I start thinking about them coming in wearing cowboy hats and lassos for some reason.
But that's one of the reasons I love this film so much is because it's a Korean film, and I just love that slice of life, different culture, and it's not targeted towards, you know, me as an audience member. So I get this, that fuzzy, nice disconnect of, okay, you know, this is a different culture that I can kind of partake in and be a part of. So it's one of the reasons I think this film I really enjoy, apart from the story, apart from the quirkiness, apart from all that, just that slice of life of a culture that's so different than my own.
I really liked it. I mean, I've been there, and, you know, I didn't get to see this part of there. I saw a different aspect. I saw the city aspect, and, you know, and I got to look around and kind of see how people were living in apartments and things like that. And this is very different than what I would have guessed, you know, maybe a rural Korean town or village would be like. And yet it wasn't. You know, there was so many similarities and things even to our own kind of cities and villages and things like that. But yet, you know, it was very much of a contrast, especially when he was at his house or he was at the houses of other people versus like when he was at the station, a little bit more modern versus kind of like, you know, a little old school, you know.
The idea of the compound instead of a single home.
Mm-hmm.
The lights aren't built into the ceiling; they're bolted on, and they have the plug-in that hangs down from the ceiling. So it just gives, I don't know, it gives you a very different feel. The scenes that they set up on each individual shot, like they felt like unique, real places. It didn't feel like a soundstage to me.
Agreed. I like how, you know, the environment really added to that too. Boy, it rained a lot in this movie, and I know that was a part of it. They wanted it. You know, of course, that was what they were going for. But man, it was, you know, muddy and dirty, and it really added a lot to the, you know, environment of the movie. You know, to know that, you know, this is maybe atypical. Maybe it is typical. I don't know, of those areas, but it really made it feel kind of dingy and dirty. and maybe not as normal as it could have been.
Yeah, but absolutely loved it. And you made a good point earlier when you talked about the quirkiness of the film, especially in the first half. I loved it. I love the little bits of dry humor, seeing different humor from a different culture, and then just seeing dumb things like the guy getting struck by lightning. I lost it at that part. I had completely forgotten that part existed in the film. And so you go down and he gets struck by lightning. Like, it starts raining and he gets struck by lightning. You're like, what the crap is this?
Yeah. And the wife was all like, he's taking all these tonics. He gets killed by lightning. And she's like, well, they'll say he lived because of all the tonics.
All the tonics.
Yeah. And then she starts crying. They're both sitting there like, oh crap, sorry, it's our fault. But they're like, you got struck by lightning. It's great. And then the deacon, 2-3. Did you catch that? Yeah. His name in Korean is 2-3.
I didn't catch that. No.
Yeah. And it's like
subtitles.
Yeah. Is that your real name? It's 2-3. Oh man.
That guy, that was an interesting, the priest that they brought in, that was kind of an interesting character. I didn't really understand, him. I'm going to be honest with you. This was a movie that, like the latter half, I kind of was having a hard time keeping up with all the different connections they were trying to make.
Yeah, I feel you there, Josh.
Do you?
Yeah, the end part was... when the movie ended, the first thought I had was, well, that felt a little sloppy. Like, as far as like trying to tie in kind of the resolution, who did what and who's a part of what team and everything else like that. It didn't feel like a tight ending. And maybe that's just, like I said, it's not made for us. It's made for a Korean audience. So that it may make a lot more sense, in that situation. It almost felt like they went for a Shyamalan twist, but it didn't land for me personally when I watched it this time. I may have to watch it again to pick up on some other stuff, but like having the Japanese shaman, is he the devil? Who knows? You have the Christian deacon and that church, but that was like a very minor side character to the Korean shaman, who I guess was on the devil's team also. I mean,
he's on the devil's team.
But see, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's fine to have the Korean shaman on the devil's team. Was he always on the devil's team? What's the point of all the shots of him being, attacked by locusts in his car by himself? Like, the story's showing us this, but that doesn't seem consistent with the world they're picking up. Like, if he's part of that team, why would he be attacked by that?
And the whole scene where he's doing his ritual, which was nuts, by the way, that was just crazy stuff. It was fun to watch. But he's doing who we find out to be the devil later, the Japanese guy. He's doing that ritual at the exact same time. I mean, is that meant to throw you off?
Are they on the same team?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with the locust, I was thinking was like, well, maybe that's her. Maybe that's the ghost,
the guardian ghost
who's doing that. But the way they shot it, it's like they're trying to set up that the two shamans are fighting each other, spiritually, and one is winning until the father like shuts down the Korean shaman, and
that's the way I took it.
Right. That's what they're showing you. Like, they don't give you any hints of anything else is happening unless they are cultural hints and we can't see it.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of cultural hints in there with the xenophobia towards the Japanese man.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
And the clash between
is that a real thing? I mean,
that's a real thing.
Oh yeah.
You'll have to read up on the history of what Japan did to Korea.
To Korea.
Okay.
Yeah. So then that has a lot to do with the driving force in the film, because up until, I want to say, even when the little girl starts eating fish, up until then, this film kind of gives the impression that this is not a paranormal film, but in all reality is just a set of bad circumstances driven by xenophobia.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
regards to Japanese
okay.
people.
That's interesting. That's not the take I got from the beginning of the film. The beginning of the film, I got a take of this Japanese guy is a serial killer.
That too.
I mean, that's everything they laid out for you. The pictures, the the entire setting is setting it up that way, and it's like, okay, that's fine. And I don't mind them pulling the rug out from underneath that and saying, no, it's spiritual aspects of it are actually real. Like there's real I guess what we call sympathetic magic happening, in this village.
Yeah.
And then actually having a real ghost, kind of interacting with this whole situation and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. It was
pulled
weird
that rug out.
Well, yeah, but it's just weird the different turns they decided to make, and like they finally settled, like the final resolution settled on the two shamans are on the same side. By the way, one's the devil, I guess, and the dad should have waited with the ghost, but should he have? Like, there's no resolution there.
That's a really good point.
Well,
what was the point of the three roosters?
So there was a trap, that spirit flower. If you guys paid attention to the whole flower trap,
that was.
He needed to wait to a certain amount of time for that flower trap to have worked correctly. So that lady spirit is like the guardian spirit of the village. She's been the one that's been protecting him. So the battle between the two shamans is between this guardian spirit who's, guarding the whole village, and this shaman who's working with the Japanese guy who's the devil, or is at least possessed by the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And so the end of the film where she's got that, the spirit flower, and he has to wait for the three rooster crows. That's kind of like you've got to figure out who you're going to trust type deal. Whether or not, you're going to trust the one shaman, or you're going to trust me. And when he left, the flowers withering signified that the trap failed and that nothing happened. And so,
and that was kind of surface level. I got that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I said, there's interactions between the two shamans that are supposedly on the same side that
make you think that they're against each other.
Well, and not just make you think, but they seem like they actually are against each other. Mm-hmm. Right? There's one thing to like setting up a mystery or a misdirect. Think Knives Out or something like that, where on second watch or when you think back on it, you're like, oh no, they gave us all the hints necessary to put the story together. They just did it cleverly enough to not, to only see it after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
You don't get that same feeling with the Wailing. No.
Yeah, I don't get that feeling with this movie, and it kind of left me like, okay, it just in a lesser movie or in an American movie that did this, and I understood the cultural references, I'd be like, oh, they decided where they wanted to go late in the process, and they just kind of turned a corner and said, okay, they're actually, audience, actually, these two were working together the whole time, and it's like, and I'd be like, that's sloppy, and that's kind of what I felt coming out of the movie, and again, that's my take on it. With I've been to Korea like 3 times,
mm-hmm.
but I don't have any real insight into this process. I did enjoy, like, for some reason, the only thing that I really connected with was when they had, different meals and stuff out. I was like, oh yeah, no, I remember the long metal spoons.
And I'm right there with you, dude.
Set up and all the dishes and stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah.
Where they're on the metal table that just has a grill, like it's a metal table with a grill.
Yeah. So like that type of stuff, I was like, oh yeah, no, I recognize that a lot, but I was never in any small villages. I was basically in Seoul the whole time, so I never got to saw that part of it. But
I think it'd be wrong to say it's a fantastic film. And I come out of it. What did you say? You came out of it feeling not tangled. I'm trying to think of the wording you used.
Well, I thought the ending felt sloppy.
Sloppy. There we go.
Yeah.
So I think it's wrong to say that it felt sloppy just because of the cultural references. I think it was a slightly sloppy ending, regardless of the cultural references that we don't understand.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, because again, if you look at something like Knives Out, which has a kind of a similar setup and misdirection, the idea would be that the movie making technique and the culture that it's standing in lets you think back on it and go, oh, wow, that's awesome. No, I get it now. I get where they were going with this. They were hinting at it the whole time. I don't think any of us are plugged into the Korean culture enough to be able to say that type of thing for this movie.
So this movie might actually,
yeah, they might have hints like in the background of the Korean shaman's house that we just don't get, and so we don't get it, so we don't know.
Yeah, because I can look at it on the surface and understand the xenophobia portion.
Right.
I can understand the disconnect, not the disconnect, but the clash between Christianity and shamanism. I can understand these things from a surface level. But you're right. Like there's probably cultural things or just even little hints and signs that would stand out if I was Korean that I'm not necessarily getting entirely in this film, simply because I'm not Korean.
Well, you guys even pointed one out to me that I didn't realize. The little girl, when she switched from when she was eating fish, I never got that until you guys just told me why that was, something I should be looking at. I guess now from what I've been getting now is that's kind of a sign that she's being possessed maybe by the Japanese guy. Is that what I'm getting or hearing from you guys?
Yeah, at that point in time, it's like the rash signifies like the interaction or the control.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, it's a weird tie-in with the zombie aspect. And again, like there's so many aspects of this movie that are just weird in a storytelling sense from my perspective. Again, acknowledging that my perspective might not be right, but might not be culturally significant at all. Like this movie wasn't made for me, but like the whole aspect. So let's just take the Japanese shaman, right? And he looks genuinely surprised that the guy that was in the truck that was dead, that he reanimated with his, at the same night that he's, being attacked by the Korean shaman. It's like, he looks genuinely surprised at what happened. And I'm thinking that at the end of the movie where he's the devil, that he wouldn't be surprised by that. Like why would the devil be surprised by that aspect if he could? Like he'd look surprised if he pulled it off.
I got the impression that after he was hit
and tossed down the mountain twice,
that kind of his possession ended. I think he was possessed, not necessarily he was an evil shaman. I think he was possessed, and his possession kind of like hit a hiccup in that period. That's the impression that I got.
You think the Japanese guy was possessed?
Yeah, I think he was possessed by a devil.
Oh, and I also think that possibly the whole devil part is something in the deacon. Like it's, it reminds me the way it was shot and the way it was framed as the same thing as the fathers, kind of look outside and seeing the Japanese shaman, unclothed and attacking him. And he's like, "Oh, I thought that was a dream." And she's like, "It wasn't." And I'm like, "Okay, but then how did he end up back at his, like the whole
at
thing
his
is
house,
like, yeah, back at his house." And I'm thinking, well, maybe that entire devil part is just, it's kind of the same thing. It's like unexplained. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, okay, maybe once the Japanese shaman was killed by being thrown down the mountain and hitting the car and then thrown down the mountain again to dispose his body, that's when the devil was able to actually just use the body from then on.
Yeah, that confused me. Like, I'm like, was that really the guy that got hit by the car? And why was he there at that moment?
Like, can the ghost physically? I mean, she could physically grab the hand of the father at the end of the film, even though there are people saying, although it is a shaman, so maybe that doesn't count. But they're saying that ghosts can't touch people, and it's like, okay,
it's almost like there's a definition of what a ghost is, what a zombie is, what a possessed person is, that we're not privy to.
Well,
like
and
doesn't match. And again, that's the cultural thing.
And that might be cultural thing too. It's like the translation says ghost, but I'm betting that word has a lot more loaded than just ghost. Like that's
we have to be losing stuff in translation.
We have to be, because there's too much of this that doesn't make sense.
And what
given the strict nature of the translation,
or what we consider a possessed person, is all shaped by the media we ingest and our personal beliefs, which are very different than the media and personal beliefs of the Korean people. So it does feel like there's a definition somewhere that we're just not privy to, and it's different just enough
Well, and like
where
the,
it's
And
confused.
I never got like why okay, what was really going on with the girl? Was she possessed? I'm saying yes, but then why? What was the purpose of the zombies that he would reanimate? Like these people that were going in and killing people in their homes. Like I guess I felt a little bit of a disconnect between those two. You know,
the whole point is them gathering souls or gathering people, making people attack each other, making people die, making people. That's what I got.
where did you get that from?
From all
Like,
the pictures.
But okay.
So they're gathering all of these photos. They're gathering the photo evidence of these individuals. So like, what are they trying to capture if not, that person in that moment or that to
like
me,
more
it's,
like the Aboriginal type thought of like if you capture somebody on film,
photo,
you're catching their
So
soul.
to me, it was giving the impression that they were taking these people.
I guess. I mean, it's as good an interpretation as any. I don't 100% see it because like they're taking pictures twice. Because they usually take a picture before and after. Yeah, and that's I don't like that doesn't make like maybe there again.
Yeah,
maybe there's a cultural thing there, but I don't see it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying my theory is 100%, but that's kind of where I.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just like I said, I'm just a little confused by it.
But that's what makes this film a good film for the podcast is because there's no. It's ambiguous enough to give good discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I enjoyed it until they didn't put the dog out of its misery.
Yeah,
and I was really like, that sucks, man. I was like,
that was rough.
There was the dog's still alive.
That part and the guy in the hospital who breaks his own collarbone and neck. That was kind of
that was some pretty good contortionist acting.
Yeah, that's as close to like full on body horror as I get anymore. And I was like, I don't remember this in the original film. I don't remember watching this. That was my thought process. I'm like, crap. What else did I forget? But yeah, that was some,
well, and so more towards the beginning of the movie, where they're kind of exchanging, I would say ghost stories, but the guy's telling them about it, and so at night they're at the police office, and all of a sudden the father starts just yelling and ducking under the table.
Yeah.
I was like, at first I thought that the sergeant was pranking the other officer because they had just talking about that, and I was like, oh, that's great. That's going to be a great thing. The guy's like, what, and everything else like that. And then the camera has a shot of the door that showed the lady there, and I was like, oh, okay, he's actually freaking out.
Yeah, because you do get the impression that he's just screwing with the other.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I think had they not shown you the lady, you would have never like.
You would have. Like, well, yeah. So that was fun.
You would have thought he would just being a wuss again.
I love the quirky humor bits of this film.
Although, how many chickens died to make this movie?
How many chickens
and a couple of goats? Yeah.
And how many birds in that birds and the crows and the soy sauce and the crow? Oh my goodness.
That one, I gagged on that one. I was already not feeling well, so that did not help my gag reflex.
Well, and it didn't help it. Okay, I never got why. Help me with this one. What's with the man? I'm guessing it was the Japanese guy in the diaper eating the animals out in the wilderness.
Well, that was the Japanese shaman.
That was the Japanese shaman, but why? I never got why. What was the purpose of those shots? Just to freak people? I don't know. Freak people out? To show that he's different? I don't know.
Yeah, it does set him up as, adversarial.
Yeah.
Like he's eating raw meat in the woods and attacking people and stuff like that.
Well, it's adversarial and unnatural.
But is he actually? That's the problem, right? That's the only time we see that. The only time we see that. I mean, we do see the evidence of it later when the guy gets struck by lightning. So I guess it actually happened. But like we see it in a flashback and then what he thought
in a story. Yeah,
yeah,
and a story and a dream that he thought he was dream. And so we don't even know. And that's why I say like in the beginning it feels like it's almost a normal film that's just driven by xenophobia to where you don't know, the Japanese guy is just this target of a xenophobic.
Right, it's not an omniscient camera. It's like it's a Korean camera.
Guilty narrator. You know what I'm trying to think of.
Unreliable narrator.
Unreliable narrator.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, the camera is like a Korean camera in the sense that it's looking at it and setting everything up from, that point of view. And yeah, I don't know. That was like I said, it just, everything didn't tie up as neatly as I would have liked to. But, I thought it was fine.
Yep. No,
And I was just saying it's one of those classic movies too that I always struggle a little bit. I've gotten better about movies like that don't end good. And, that, the person doesn't come out like ahead of the game, type thing. And this one actually didn't have as much of an issue with as some I've had in the past, like The Skeleton Key and
yeah.
Where the bad guy wins. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was more of the disconnect of some of the other things going on, but at the same time, it was still pretty hardcore at the end, where him and his whole family are pretty much
stabbed to death, basically. Yeah. Well, after she stabs that old lady that was watching her, I think it gives you the impression, like, oh, this is not going to end well, and I think you're just preparing for it not to end well, because that the first shaman ritual where he's using the knives on, the swords on her and hitting her with the swords, and I didn't grasp at the time that he was working in league with the Japanese shaman. Like, you get the impression, hey, this isn't working, because it's not. Obviously he's making it worse on purpose, but it's like, this isn't working. She just stabbed an old lady. This is not going to end well. And so I think you go into it with you're already preparing mentally for this not to be a happy ending to where everyone's just living, hunky dory. So I think the film itself prepares you for a not very happy reunion at the end.
Well, it's not a happy ending. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I mean, I would say most of the way through the movie, I was pretty guaranteed that I already knew that it was probably not going to end very good.
Well, up to the choice with the father, I was totally on, like, okay, well, I mean, if he makes the right decision, and there's no good hints from my point of view that which decision is the right decision, either he goes back and saves his family that way, or he stays and somehow that supernatural aspect saves the family that way. I mean, like, I had no good bearing for,
whether or not.
Yeah, because, during I guess I'm going to call the shaman fight, that's how it's framed. It's
you're absolutely right.
Between those two things, it has the Japanese shaman literally reacting to the stakes being driven into the idol. Like, so there is no hints there that the Korean shaman is attacking the guardian ghost. Like, that, none of that is there. At least it's not there on the surface that a foreigner could understand.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep. No, I think you're right.
That's a good point. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I kept hoping, and you're right. Now that I think about it, I think up until the point of the choice of the father also, that's where I started to go, I don't know. Yeah, I was hoping that it would come out good, and maybe his daughter would.
Maybe he could save his family and really do turn around the whole attack on the village, because that's really kind of the pivotal aspect of it.
Yeah,
felt like
I was hoping that way, but at the same time, I was still questioning. I don't know what you guys were, but I was still questioning at that point if that ghost lady was, good or bad.
Oh, right. I had her on. I was like, well, I mean, the film is telling me she's evil.
Yep.
Like, everything in the film is telling me that. Yeah. Now they can pull a bait and switch if they want, which is kind of, I guess, what I felt like they did.
Yeah.
Is that they changed her to being good very late in the story, and I'm like, okay, where are the hints that she was good before? Like, when she's tossing, maybe when she's tossing rocks at him, that is a subtle hint somehow.
Or just that first interaction with him as the witness, that it was a subtle aspect. Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. They don't do a good job of, again, that we could see coming outside of the impression that, oh, this is actually a good spirit.
Yeah, so, I mean, and she's
you throw
except for her wearing white. I mean, that was. And
Yeah.
and I don't even rely on colors for other race, for other nationalities, because I remember when we were in Japan one time, and I commented like, "Oh, that guy's totally got pink on," and I remember someone from the office there going, "Oh, that," because he had lived in the United States. He's like, "That doesn't matter here. There's no male or female like tied to that particular color here. Everybody wears it pretty freely." And I went, "Oh," and that kind of brought me into the idea of, the way that I associate colors with things isn't the same as other cultures associate colors and other things. So, that white, I never took it as, well, that may mean good or bad.
Yeah. I mean, both shamans wear white at different times.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't, yeah. Again, the plot is frustrating to me. The movie itself is enjoyable. Like,
Right.
I like the movie. It's just when I sit back and think about the plot and like where the characters ended up and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's the way it works.
That's awesome. Well, cool.
No, I love the acting. I love the actors. Right? I'm gonna butcher his name, but Do Wong Quack, the main character.
I feel like I've seen him in other things before.
He's in The Man from Nowhere.
That's a great movie.
Yep.
Yep. He's the detective in The Man from Nowhere.
That's how
Does
I
a
know
fantastic
him.
job in there.
Yeah, he looked familiar. Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, he did a great job. And some of those scenes earlier almost made me feel like in some ways that we were going to go towards a almost like a Shaun of the Dead type thing for a minute.
Yeah, the early impression.
Like, for real, I had no idea what to expect in this movie. I went in completely
and I appreciate
cold.
you going in blind. That was
I didn't look at all.
The trailer gives way too much away on this one.
Oh,
That's
really?
why I hate trailers.
As trailers normally do, but on this one even worse.
Yeah. If it's a movie I've never seen before, I try to go in as as virgin as possible on movies. So, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
We did.
Thank
Do
you.
you want to give ratings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give some ratings. John, go ahead and start.
Would I watch this with my mom in the room? No, because she'd be asking me every 5 minutes what's going on.
Wait, that's my mom too. No way.
Like, Mom, read the subtitles. You and I are reading the same subtitles here.
You say those kinds of things and you remind me so much of my mom. And we tease her about it all the time, so it's okay. Crit, what'd you think, man?
Give it 15 out of 23 rakes to the head.
Brutal.
I like that. That's good. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 10. What the hell's going on? Because I felt like that so many times. What the hell's going on with this now? But again, I want to say that I actually did really like this movie. It was just like what we were talking about. It's just some of those connections I was having a hard time coming up with.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, very good job and stuff. I enjoyed this movie a lot and stuff. So.
Okay, so what do you bring into the table for us, Josh?
All right. So, like I said, I was having a hard time. I really struggled with this one. I think this is what I struggled with the most. So here's my 3 movies. Hopefully you'll like them. I recognize that they're not like these Korean ones where we may probably not have seen them, but that's okay. They're good ones anyway.
Okay.
That's fine.
So the first one is This Will Make You Change Your Mind. Number 2 is Are You Afraid of the Dark? And number 3 is Seeing is Believing and Believing is to See.
I like the first one. This will make you change your mind.
Maybe number 3, but I can.
We can do number 3. Last time we did this, we chose the one I said first. So let's do number 3.
All right, number 3 it is.
Either one of those you guys would have liked. Number 1 is Get Out.
Okay.
Seen it. Good one.
Yeah.
I know. I watched it with you. Yeah. I love that movie and stuff like that. It just kept coming up in my brain, and that's one I wanted to see. The second one is it's one I've never seen before. Actually, that I picked just because it was got good ratings. It's called It Comes at Night.
Oh, I've seen that one. That's pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And this next one is one you have seen, but I think it does have some deep aspects to it, and it's Oculus.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully you guys are okay with that.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite horror movies because it does have some deep aspects, and it is definitely psychological. I was going for the psychological side of things more than anything.
It almost made my list.
Did it really?
Yep, it almost replaced The Wind.
Oh, wow.
Did that instead of Oculus. Or did Oculus instead of that.
That middle one changed about 20 times on which one I was going to put in that middle one. If I could show you the list one day, it's crazy. But anyways.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to rewatch Oculus.
And I haven't watched it for years, so I'm actually really excited to see it. Some of these I've seen a lot, but this is one I definitely haven't seen at all recently either. So.
And I've never seen it.
Oh, good.
What?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
To do that for,
then I am so happy that you get to see this movie. Like, I am genuinely excited for you to tell me what you think of it, because it's actually one of my favorite horror movies.
All right.
And stuff like that. Wow.
Along with all the other horror movies.
This one's different. This one's definitely a different telling of a
I've heard good things about
it. Yeah. And that's why I like it, is because it is different.
Blue, and I've never heard of it, but I've never watched it, so.
Plus, it's got the chick from Doctor Who in it, who is smoking hot. Oh my goodness! It's got Amy Pond in it.
Now we see the real reason.
Yeah,
it's her first big movie. Anyways, well, good guys. I can't wait for next week. This is going to be a good one, and I'm glad we watched what we watched. So, and I appreciate all your insights and getting together tonight. And it was fun. I really like these kind of these movies that we can get into the meatier parts of it. So. And as always, I just want to say to everybody, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper from all of us here at Josh's House of Nerd. Good night.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness, please like and subscribe and check out our other nerdy videos.